Discord. Discord.
One. Let's honor them this week. There is no final.
Welcome back. At the next event of our Luxury Chronicles playlist, the Archivist relates his stop at Mercedes, and you'll get to drive yet another extremely powerful car. Looks like luxury often goes together with mean performance in Germany.
My last day in Germany led me to Mercedes for yet another thrilling ride. My ultimate appointment in this country was set with the breathtaking Mercedes AMG 1. The one and only, as Mercedes would say. Like all the German machines I had the pleasure to admire over the course of my trip, the Mercedes AMG 1 was indubitably on the powerful side. That's an understatement, as the 1 was built from the dream of bringing Formula One technology to the road. A dream that was meant to come true. Everything in this car screams Formula One. Powertrain, materials, interior. And I believe world champion Lewis Hamilton himself helped Mercedes in the development of this car. To the driver who'll get behind the wheel of this machine in the festival, you're probably not ready. My German trip was ending wonderfully with this Mercedes AMG 1. I was content and ready to move on to the last part of my trip.
The tour continues. after France and Germany, we'll now be focusing on British vehicles. In his notes, the archivist is telling us everything about his great first stop, a day at Triumph. That's correct. Our British luxury culture section starts with motorcycles. Here you are. You're going for a nice and chill ride. Pay attention, find your way, reach the destination.
After a roller coaster of a trip through France and Germany, my luxury car pilgrimage was bringing me back to my home, Great Britain. My first encounter alone was enough to justify the trip, as I was about to meet yet another fascinating individual.
My name's Stuart Wood. I'm Chief Engineer at Triumph. We're in the Triumph Factory Visitor Experience here in Hinckley. It's a great display of motorbikes. If I had to pick just one bike, it's going to have to be the Rocket 3. It's got high performance, very high capability, high specification, really stunning looks. It really is phenomenal.
A delightful meeting that would be followed by other great surprises from my homeland. My European journey was slowly coming to an end. Yet I still had so much to see to complete my luxury chronicles. Starting with a keenly anticipated stop in Hinckley.
We pay a lot of attention to the detail and how well the bike works.
And a special rendezvous with the Triumph Rocket 3R. Cloudy grey skies and damp asphalt. I was back home, no doubt. And I couldn't be happier. I had a whole day with Triumph ahead of me, surrounded by passionate people to guide me through their motorcycle universe. Stuart Wood, concept engineer, had shared with me everything you could ever want to know about Triumph. Their 100 years of existence, the attention to detail, the perfect combination of performance and visual design. Fascinating. And this Rocket 3. Big and powerful, with a remarkable 2.5-liter engine, but still easy to ride. An extreme motorcycle with a huge presence. A Triumph bike through and through. British craftsmanship and style, the passion of a whole biker community. This was shaping up to be another highlight of this European trip. All I could do is enjoy the moment. Raw performance has never looked as good as it does on a Triumph. I believe that's what they call character. My next British stop was McLaren, with the most exclusive McLaren there is, the Elva. The extreme expression of what a McLaren car can be. Fifth in the McLaren Ultimate Series, a line that encompasses McLaren's most advanced design, engineering, and performance. Like McLaren says, the Elva is a car that needs no destination, designed to deliver nothing but the purest possible driving experience. Light, powerful, split-second agility, with no roof, no windshield. This is a car that plays with your senses and builds a connection between the driver, the car, and the elements. A car directly in line with the experimental legacy of the founder of the brand himself, Bruce McLaren. Renowned driver and engineer, always looking to push aerodynamics further. The Elva is a beautiful tribute to that heritage. I wasn't initially sure I'd have the time for this detour at McLaren, but I was so glad I made the trip.
Stay tuned. The next Luxury Chronicles episode complete this playlist.
What's up? I'm Rick Martinez, and I'm here in Hawaii.
Discord.
Mr. Lee's usually in his office now.
So I've been thinking about this concept a lot lately. There's tons of folding phones out now. It's been a category for a little while, and we're expecting a folding iPhone soon. It'll probably reinvigorate the category. And I actually don't think that the concept of a Pixel and the concept of a folding phone are actually really compatible. And that's okay. So hear me out. The idea of a Pixel is very specific. Like, we've seen it for the past couple years now. It's a super smart phone. Like, it's never really been a super high-end piece of hardware. It's never had the best screen or the best chip or the best battery or the best cameras, but just a ton of great, clever software that the everyday person can appreciate. And more often lately than ever, also a pretty good deal. But then the idea of a folding phone, well, this is inherently niche. Like, this is going to be a premium priced, premium built piece of bleeding edge hardware for the people that want the absolute most from their phone. They use their phone so much they have two different styles of phone in one, and it might cost $2,000 to get that. So Pixel and folding phone are like opposites. They're at odds with each other. But that didn't stop Google from making another nearly $2,000 folding phone. And so I've been using it. And as someone who really likes Pixels and as someone who likes folding phones, I like it. But I do understand that there are very few people who I can recommend this to. So the biggest change versus last year's Pixel Fold, no joke, is the new hinge. It's been re-engineered, so there are both aesthetic and functional improvements. It's now gearless, and it's much smaller. So now the bezel to the left of the cover screen is much thinner, and it's closer to even all the way around, and it has this nice, smooth motion, a satisfying, kind of heavy resistance. It's a nice hinge. Shout out to the hinge engineers. The hinge-engineers, I guess. So this makes room for the next best thing about this phone, which is these new displays. So you can maybe already tell this outside cover display is a little bit bigger. It's 6.4 inches, and it's also a good amount brighter. One of my favorite trends in phones this year. So 3000 nits is the new max, and it looks really good in basically any conditions. Then you open it up, and the inside 8-inch screen is brighter too. Now, not much else is different. It still has a selfie camera cut out in the corner. It still has that aggressively medium bezel all the way around. And it still has that very visible crease through the middle that you can easily feel with your finger, but you kind of learn to live with over time. So then the next best thing about this phone is probably Pixel Snap. So the magnets in the back that they've added to every Pixel to give them Qi 2 wireless charging, but also have them snap to literally any MagSafe accessory, elite. It's awesome. They made some of their own Pixel Snap accessories, of course, but the fact that every Pixel 10 in the lineup can snap to a MagSafe charger or a dock or anything you can buy right now or might already have is so dope. And even though this folding Pixel is a bit heavier than the average phone, it does still stay up in the car dash no problem. That was one of my concerns coming in. There are also some other tiny changes, like the SIM card tray, which is still here, has moved up to the top of the phone, and you can also now go up to a terabyte of storage. Now, we already learned that this Tensor G5 chip, which is new for this generation, was kind of a letdown power-wise. Like, it's nowhere near the most powerful chips in phones right now. But they did pair it with 16 gigs of RAM because it's a multitasking foldable, so that makes sense. So yeah, I was let down by the power levels, but I would say I was pleasantly surprised by the battery life and the efficiency, because the battery life of this phone was actually really solid. Effectively, when you're using it closed a lot, it's like a slightly thicker phone with a relatively small 6.4-inch display, and it's a 5015 milliamp hour battery. So using it like that, I was getting like 6 hours of screen on time, no problem, every single day. Of course, mileage varies pretty directly with the amount of time you spend unfolded, where it can chew through battery faster. But there's no question that the extra room inside, thanks to the thinner hinge, was put pretty directly towards battery, and it turns out to be a surprising strength of this phone. Worth it. Shout out again to the hingineers. Also, did I mention this is the first foldable ever to be fully IP68 water and dust resistant? You better believe that's also because of that hinge. So using the Pixel 10 Pro Fold closed, it's pretty good. Everything I liked about Pixel 10s is still here. It's all the Android 16 features, the Material 3 expressive aesthetics and the animations, and then all the AI features, call screening, now playing, all of that. Super smart smartphone. plus the new longer battery life, like I said. So then opening it up, just like every other foldable, I get inspired to be way more productive. Like I start doing things I would never do normally on a phone, like organizing travel, buying plane tickets, and doing things side by side, like email triage with schedule building on my calendar. Like I just get this itch to crush my to-do list and be productive because I have all this real estate now. There isn't anything particularly new or special about Android on this folding screen. Of course, there's still side-by-side apps and the taskbar and dock thing at the bottom, but after that, it feels like it's really just what you make of it. But also, surprise, this Pixel is clearly still not a hardware leader in any way. Like it's still kind of a chunky foldable phone, which is very noticeable when compared to a lot of these newer ultra-thin folding phones. And it's also noticeably heavier, so the slightly uncomfortable feeling that you get while using the phone closed, which, let's be real, is how you're going to be using it a lot, that's important. And so you could argue that that is a sacrifice that's necessary for such good battery life, but I just think the ergonomics are right up there on top of the list for most important things about a foldable. And this isn't like a silicon carbon battery or anything that charges particularly fast either. And so the newer foldables just feel more pleasant to use, even when open too. The lighter weight makes a difference, the thinner bezels make a difference, the lesser creases on other foldables makes a difference too. This is also essentially the exact same cameras as last year, which is to say almost flagship quality. Like it's just a half step down from the Pixel flagships, despite how big this camera plateau is. So just have a little less detail and a little more noise and a little less ability in low light shooting scenarios. And the 10 megapixel selfie cameras on the cover and inside screens are just not that great at all, unfortunately. And then the Tensor G5 is decently efficient.
Battlefield 6 is here, or just about, for everyone. But as we continue our launch window content, let's first take a look at the Day 1 or Day 0 update. The Battlefield team recently detailed update 1.0.1, and today we're taking a look at what you need to know out of it so that come launch, you're 100% in the know. Drop your thoughts, drop a like, and do me a huge favor, make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all things Battlefield 6 and even more FPS content. We've got the busiest fall upcoming in our channel's history, and we're chasing down that lofty goal of 700,000 subscribers in the near future, so I'd love to have you in the community if you'd like to tag along. And finally, check out my friends over at Advanced GG for 30% off your entire order with code Espresso30, but more on that a little later. For now, let's get into what the update changed. So first and foremost, the major points of this update come down to a handful of different things. We're going to break down each of these sort of segments a bit further, but the main things are movement has been refined with reduction to slide to jump momentum. They lower the jump height and increase the inaccuracy when firing while airborne and sliding. Handling and general recoil tunings have been made to weaponry for more consistent gunplay. You end up seeing adjustments to rush and breakthrough layouts where it's revised a bit better for the dichotomy between attacking and defending. Audio's had some overhauls with game-wide and clearer pings, refined weapon and vehicle sounds, and more. And netcode has some more optimization to reduce desync, fast time to death, and instances with visible damage. But that's like the top level stuff. Let's talk a little further about each of these different things. For movement, let's start there. Of course, the big things are that they reduce the speed that can be carried through a slide into then a jump. That momentum coming out of that will be something that is lowered. They said especially horizontally. They increased the penalty for repeated jumps and slightly lowered the jump height, so that bunny hopping mechanic is now no longer going to be as effective. And they also increased the weapon inaccuracy when firing while jumping or sliding, which I think makes sense. I personally haven't had the ability to test out just how different it is from the beta just yet, but that was your sort of top level things for the player movement itself. They also adjusted parachute physics where the reduction to the initial acceleration was adjusted, and they also fixed an issue with the momentum being lost when cutting the parachute. There's now smoother animations for aim down sight and hip fire for better target acquisition. The jump landing animations have been updated for a bit more smoother of a feel, as is the crouch to stand transition animations now settling a little more quickly. Overall, those player animations and movements should feel a bit more intuitive to the player as compared to what we saw in the beta. Weapons, they detailed more high-level stuff overall rather than like talking about specific weapon tuning to a degree of every single weapon. You'll see that the gadgets are something that there's a lot of individual gadget adjustments, but weaponry, it's more so like generalizations, where they said there was recoil adjustments across multiple weapons, but didn't specify exactly what. Now, having played a decent bit here with some weapons before the launch and with this update, it does feel like there is a bit more bounce and noticeable recoil. However, you have to consider that we don't have the immediate unlocks for all the attachments just yet, though. So I couldn't quite pinpoint just how much an increase to this recoil we saw at base compared to like if you have a weapon that's kitted for mitigating recoil control, just how different that would be. So that's something that will still need a little bit of testing once everybody gets their hands on with it, but they did adjust some of the recoil profiles across multiple weapons. Now, the weapon accuracy was also adjusted where it's now more stable when aiming down sight while moving, so a little bit of that strafe adjustment, but they detailed it's less accurate when firing mid-jump, so tying into those movement changes. One other big thing is that they increased the bullet spread when firing automatic weapons while aiming down sights. Now, for those that are unaware what this again is that sort of mentioned incentive to burst or tap fire your weapons. At long range, you're going to notice this. Mid to close quarters, probably not as much, but you're going to recognize that bloom or that shot deviation, the bullet spread, whatever you want to call it, where it's the cone of where your bullets could go instead of that pinpoint precise location you're aiming every single time. There is subtle deviation based off that auto fire. Bursting and tap firing mitigates this as you're not spamming your weapon at that point and having that deviation shake all around, but that's something that you should be aware of and be conscious of. The M87A1 shotgun was signaled out as it was before in the beta, and of course with the mentions leading to this update, where it now requires more pellets to secure a kill, where if you're accurate, you're still going to feel like you're absolutely shredding with it, but you need to be a little bit more accurate than you had to beforehand. They additionally fixed an issue with crosshairs appearing larger than the actual bullet. Bolt action rifles have their first shot boost now applied to every shot, and then some reticles were adjusted to improve the visibility of those reticles. Now, a lot more to talk about. Before we continue, a quick heads up. We recently partnered with Advanced GG, as I've been loving their products for a while now, but it's finally official. To me, Advanced is that replacement for a cup of coffee in the morning, the afternoon pick-me-up, the fuel for any gaming or long content recording session. Right now, to celebrate the launch of the partnership and coincidentally, the launch of Battlefield 6, you can get 30% off your entire order from now until the 15th with code ESPRESSO30. If you've never had their stuff, they've got some really great flavors like strawberry lemonade and rainbow sherbet are two of my favorites. There's zero chalky residue, and they've got some really cool shakers. So I'd highly recommend checking them out if you'd like to fuel up for the launch. And again, for a limited time, you can get 30% off your entire order with code ESPRESSO30 or checking the link in the description below. But anyways, check them out. Back to it. Let's talk about gadgets. There's a lot of stuff that was adjusted here, some more specific than the others, but starting with sort of like general discussions about gadgets, they fixed an issue with the rocket launcher's backblast, dealing too much damage to infantry, and they also reduced the rocket launcher's blast damage against infantry to discourage ground blasting. Personally, not really a huge fan of that one, or rather, I guess better way to say it is that I don't quite understand it. I felt like, personally speaking, the blast damage when shooting the ground was actually rather low when dealing damage to infantry, but maybe that's just me. Rocket launcher explosions will now also correctly check for walls and cover before applying damage, so you could have been in a very safe position otherwise, but still taken damage beforehand. that should be fixed out now. The repair tool now overheats slightly faster to prevent it from becoming too durable. Repair tools and defibrillators can now also damage enemy gadgets and the defibs in general. The damages have been reduced for both the quick zaps and the charge zaps, so hadn't had the ability to test what this means to do for like getting kills. But I did have a sequence where I had zapped somebody twice and I didn't get the kill, so I'm wondering if that was like a prime example of what that would look like. But anyways, for specific gadgets, you end up having your RPG. That was adjusted where the sight and reticle are now positioned better for aiming, and they increase the dispersion when aiming down sights to discourage quick scoping with it. The MBT Law now has defaulted for the engineer class, where the missiles will now follow a more accurate trajectory and uses auto-guided missiles. The MAS 148 Glaive now has its missile trajectory updated to better reflect real-world behavior. It has 2 zoom levels, and you can now lock onto stationary weapons and vehicles, while that distance has changed and cannot be locked onto targets closer than 40 meters. So a bit longer range here for that choice. The SLM-93A Spire will now no longer lock on to air vehicles below radar level. The Airburst Incendiary, this projectile now detonates on collisions, and the projectiles deal less structural damage with more hits required to destroy facades of buildings. The SS-26, the fire damage now only applies once to soldiers, and the damage drop-off has been adjusted. It's also been adjusted in its unlock requirement from rank 1 to rank 0, making it a bit more accessible there. The LT-LM2, its spotting angle and maximum spotting distance in binocular mode has been made more forgiving. You can no longer laser paint the environment. It now removes laser painted marks when a vehicle enters thermal smoke, and now correctly spots vehicles when laser painting them. The deploy beacon has a couple of things changed, but the biggest is now it only allows for 1 spawn per player in your squad, so 4 per squad total before self-destructing. The recon drone will now fly faster when carrying C4, but the battery drains faster as a trade-off. It no longer receives unwanted force when carrying C4, making flight smoother. Movement has been improved for a more realistic feel, and when it goes out of bounds, it will now self-destruct after 3 seconds. And finally, the supply pouch, it can no longer be picked up once deployed, and it will no longer restore health to vehicles, as well as now resupplying as intended and granting 1 additional C4 as overstock. Vehicles, there's a few things that we should talk about. There are some specifics that you can see on screen and everything, but the helicopters have been given more power and responsiveness, making them easier to fly, adjusting mid-flight, and surviving attack runs, including better chances to dodge incoming RPGs. So an overall buff to the helicopters, which for those that love the helicopters, definitely nice to see. They increase the tank turret speed, and vehicle smoke countermeasures are now more effective at breaking, spotting, and lock-ons, which is, I think, a big thing to have as a buff for those. As for your maps and modes, apparently all Rush layouts have been updated based on feedback from the open beta. I didn't have a ton of opportunities to play Rush, but I definitely did notice some of these, so nice to see. But the ones that I did is that several breakthrough layouts have been updated based on open beta feedback as well. I want to say it was Siege of Cairo that there was one in particular that really stood out to me, that I was playing with Immortal Zach, and I was like, wait a second, this is new, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think it was the B point on the initial sector that you ended up having as an attacker, where beforehand it was just that initial constructed courtyard where the construction was happening. That now extends into the area before that as well. The courtyard that has a bit more flowers and the lighter walls that you can break through. But we saw a couple of those breakthrough layouts being changed. Spawn killing issues on Siege of Cairo have also been adjusted, where we also saw multiple exploits for Siege of Cairo and Iberian Offensive to allow players to reach unintended areas. That's now been squashed. So those dealing with those rooftops that players were able to get to that they otherwise were not supposed to be. Firestorm had a few adjustments that are like just general in perspective, where they improved the performance, they improved player traversal, they adjusted the lighting, but in terms of like hardcore specifics, there weren't a ton that went into that. Audio, there's a handful of adjustments that were made, but the most important to me, I think, are the adjustments to the incendiary and movement audio mixes. The movement audio mixes includes, or it seems like at least, footstep audio. I feel like footstep audio is incredibly present. If you have a headset, you're probably going to be able to pick this up and be able to realize, oh, this sounds really crystal clear. So that's something that you'll definitely notice when jumping in. Directional ping sounds have been made clearer, and they tuned the instant death audio mix, so making those near-death scenarios a bit more intense in that sense. And finally, networking. Honestly, all of the noted networking changes are definitely important to note. They improved netcode to reduce cases where time to death would feel too fast. They fixed an issue where players could take damage without being visibly shot at. They fixed an issue where health values were not updated correctly. They improved netcode to reduce cases of dying after reaching cover. And one that was honestly perplexing to me, and it's nice to see it written out now because I definitely thought that this was something I was just going crazy over, was they fixed the netcode issue where damage feedback was delayed or only appeared after respawning, where it seemed like you just took damage out of nowhere, but it was a visual bug, and instead it was just something that was left over from the prior life. So that is, in a nutshell, what the day 1 or day 0 patch changed.
Peter, what can I do for you?
I'm sorry to bother you, Mr. Lee. I have a friend, Mary Jane. She's a reporter. She's doing a story on art imports, and she found this piece. Well, she wanted an expert opinion on it, and I know you have a degree.
And this might be the first time I actually get to use it. Let's see what you have. Interesting. Where did she find it?
I'm really not sure. Why, what is it?
A replica of an antique Chinese opera mask. I haven't seen one in years. This symbol here roughly translates to demon.
Demon?
Well, my father read me ghost stories with that mask and symbol in it when I was young. Scared the hell out of me. Peter, listen. That mask, it could be connected to dangerous people. Mary Jane might want to find a different story.
Do you think she's in trouble?
I don't know. Why take the risk?
Hey,
The symbol inside the mask means demon. It really spooked Mr. Lee. Never seen him like that. He even said you should drop the story.
fat chance. Do you think Mr. Lee knows more than he's letting on?
No, I think he just had a weird flashback or something. I know his childhood was pretty traumatic.
Yeah, that makes sense. Demons, huh? Catchy name. Okay, gotta get writing. See you soon.
Well, that went about as well as I could have hoped. Got some time to kill before Doc needs me at the lab. Let's do a little Spidey workout in the city.
Peter, Mr. Lee spoke to me. He seemed worried. Are you into something dangerous?
Oh, it's just a story Mary Jane's investigating. Don't worry, I'll make sure she's careful.
Please tell me you two are back together.
We're talking again. Baby steps. I hope I didn't upset Mr. Lee.
He's just concerned. I was actually touched by how concerned. I knew he liked you. He admires how dedicated you are to helping others. I think you remind him of himself when he was younger. Both orphans, both so smart.
Well, the admiration's mutual. You've got a good boss, May.
I'll tell him you said so. Love you, Peter.
Hello?
Peter, it's Dr. Octavius.
Oh, hey, what's up?
Lance Corporal Texador is here for a fitting.
I totally forgot. I didn't forget. I just, I'll be there soon.
This tardiness is starting to become a pattern. Come on, Parker. You're better than this.
How did I lose track of time?